She was an orphan. She became a queen, and then she was asked to risk everything to save people who didn't even know she existed. Her name was Esther, and her story is one of the most remarkable in all of human history. Not because she was born special, not because she had power or wealth or connections, but because when the moment came, when the fate of an entire nation rested on one decision, she chose courage over comfort. She chose her people over her palace. She chose to act when silence would have been murder. This is a story about a young girl with no parents, no power, and no obvious reason to matter, who ended up holding the destiny of thousands in her hands. It's a story about a man so consumed by hatred that he built a gallows to hang his enemy and ended up hanging on it himself. It's a story about a king who ruled 127 provinces, threw parties that lasted 6 months, and yet couldn't sleep on the one night that mattered most. And underneath all of it, never mentioned by name, never appearing directly, never sending angels or parting seas, is the quiet, unmistakable hand of God, moving in shadows, orchestrating coincidences that are too precise to be coincidences, turning every evil plan upside down. Sit tight for this one, because this story doesn't just belong to Esther. It belongs to every person who has ever felt too small, too insignificant, too unqualified to make a difference. And it has something to say to all of us. Subscribe and stay with me, because what happens next will blow your mind. To understand Esther's story, you need to understand where she came from and why she was in Persia in the first place. Esther is Jewish. Her people, the Israelites, had been conquered by the Babylonian Empire decades earlier. Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, had destroyed Jerusalem, burned the temple, and marched the Jewish people into exile. Thousands of them, ripped from their homeland, forced to live as foreigners in a land that wasn't theirs. Then Persia conquered Babylon. The empire changed hands, and the Jewish people found themselves living under Persian rule, still in exile, still far from home, still trying to survive in a foreign culture. Esther's parents died when she was young. The text doesn't tell us how, disease maybe, or the hardships of exile. Whatever happened, she was left completely alone. No mother, no father, nothing. Except a cousin named Mordecai. Mordecai was older, significantly older. He took Esther in and raised her as his own daughter. Picture him as a combination of father figure, protector, and best friend. He's the constant in her story, the anchor, the one person in the world she could always count on. They lived in Susa, the capital city of Persia. Mordecai worked at the king's gate, not an insignificant position. It meant he was part of the administrative machinery of the empire, sitting at the entrance where royal business was conducted, where officials passed, where news traveled. He was well-positioned, observant, careful, and he raised Esther to be the same way. He taught her the Jewish laws and customs, taught her to be wise, discreet, thoughtful, but he also taught her one specific rule that would define the first half of her story. Don't tell anyone you're Jewish. It wasn't shame, it was survival. In a foreign empire, in a court full of politics and power plays, being Jewish could make you a target. Mordecai had seen enough to know. Keep your head down, keep your identity hidden, blend in, stay safe. Esther grew up beautiful. The text is specific about this. She had a lovely figure and was beautiful in every way. But more than her appearance, she had something rarer. Grace, wisdom, an ability to make people feel comfortable around her, a quiet strength that drew people in. She had no idea those qualities were about to put her at the center of the most powerful empire in the world. Because in the palace on the hill above their modest home, something was happening that would change everything. The king was looking for a new queen. King Ahasuerus, known to history as Xerxes, ruled the Persian Empire. 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia, the most powerful man alive, and he had just made a spectacular mistake. He'd been throwing a party, not a weekend party, a party lasting 180 days. 6 months of feasting, drinking, and displaying his wealth to every noble, official, and military commander in his kingdom. After that, another 7-day party for everyone in the citadel of Susa. On the last day of this second party, the king was drunk, very drunk, and he decided he wanted to show off his wife, Queen Vashti, who was beautiful, to his guests. He sent servants to bring her to the banquet wearing her royal crown. Just the crown, some scholars suggest. He wanted to display her like a trophy. Vashti refused. The king was furious. His advisors panicked. If word spread that the queen had defied the king, wives all over the empire might start getting ideas about refusing their husbands. This was a political crisis. Their solution: banish Vashti, remove her as queen, and find a replacement. So the search began. Officials were appointed in every province to gather beautiful young women and bring them to Susa. They would go through 12 months of beauty treatments and preparation. Then each one would spend a night with the king. Whoever pleased him most would become queen. It sounds glamorous. It wasn't. These young women had no choice. They were selected, taken from their homes, brought to the palace, and they couldn't leave. Whether chosen as queen or not, they lived in the harem forever. Among the young women gathered was Esther. Mordecai watched her being taken, and his heart must have broken. This orphan girl he'd raised and protected, now being swept into the machinery of a pagan king's palace. He couldn't stop it, but he could follow. He walked back and forth outside the harem every single day to find out how she was doing. Every single day. That detail tells you everything about Mordecai. He couldn't be with her, couldn't protect her the way he wanted to, but he showed up, day after day, faithful, present, doing the only thing he could do. Inside the palace, something remarkable happened. Everyone loved Esther. The man in charge of the harem, Haggai, took an immediate liking to her. He gave her the best rooms, the best food, 7 special maids to attend to her, and extra beauty treatments. He coached her on what the king liked, what to wear, how to present herself. Esther listened. She was humble enough to take advice, wise enough to follow it, gracious enough to win everyone's affection. After 12 months of preparation, it was her turn to go before the king. She asked Haggai what to bring. He told her. She brought exactly that. Nothing more, nothing less. No over-the-top display, no desperate attempt to impress. Just quiet, graceful confidence. The king was captivated. He loved Esther more than all the other women. He placed the royal crown on her head. He declared her queen of Persia, the orphan from the exile, the Jewish girl with no parents and no power, now wore the crown of the most powerful empire on earth. But the real test hadn't even started yet. Enter Haman. If this story were a film, Haman would be the villain who makes your skin crawl. Not because he's a monster in the obvious sense. He's polished, powerful, sophisticated. He moves through the palace corridors with the confidence of a man who knows exactly where he stands in the hierarchy. King Ahasuerus had elevated Haman above all the other nobles, given him a seat of honor higher than everyone else. The king's officials at the gate bowed down to Haman when he passed. It was royal decree. Everyone bowed, everyone except Mordecai. Every day Haman walked through that gate. Every day, every official dropped to their knees. And every day, Mordecai stayed standing. The other officials kept asking him, "Why do you refuse to bow?" The king commanded it. "Don't you understand what you're risking?" Mordecai's reason was simple. He was Jewish, and Jews bowed only to God, they told Haman. And Haman looked over at Mordecai standing straight and still while everyone else groveled. And something ignited inside him. Not just irritation, not just wounded pride, rage, deep, consuming, irrational rage. But here's where Haman reveals his true character. He didn't just want to punish Mordecai. That would have been too small, too personal, too contained. He wanted to destroy every Jewish person in the entire Persian Empire. All of them. Every man, woman, and child. Extermination. Because one man wouldn't bow. Haman went to the king. He was careful, calculated. He didn't say, "I want to kill the Jews because one of them disrespected me." He framed it as a matter of national security. There is a certain people scattered among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom, Haman told the king, his voice smooth and reasonable. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. He offered to pay 10,000 talents of silver into the royal treasury to fund the operation. The king barely blinked. He took his signet ring off his finger and handed it to Haman. "Keep your money. Do with these people as you please." Just like that, without investigation, without verification, without even asking which people Haman was talking about. The king handed over the lives of an entire ethnic group to a man nursing a personal grudge. Haman left the palace and immediately sent dispatches to every province in the empire, written in the king's name, sealed with the king's ring, ordering the destruction, killing, and annihilation of all Jewish people, young and old, women and children, on a single day. The 13th day of the 12th month, 11 months away. The couriers went out in haste. The decree was announced in Susa. And the text says something haunting. The king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city of Susa was bewildered. The king and Haman clinked their cups while an entire people received their death sentence. When Mordecai heard the news, he tore his clothes, the ancient expression of grief so deep words couldn't contain it. He put on sackcloth and ashes and went through the city, wailing loudly and bitterly. Throughout every province, wherever the decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jewish people, fasting, weeping, wailing, sackcloth and ashes everywhere. And in the palace, completely sheltered from the news, Esther knew nothing, until her maids came to her with troubled faces and told her, "Mordecai is outside the gate in sackcloth, weeping." Esther sent clothes to Mordecai. "Change out of the sackcloth. Come inside. Tell me what's wrong." He refused the clothes. So she sent one of her trusted servants, a man named Hathach, to find out what was happening. Mordecai told him everything. The decree, Haman's plot, the exact amount of silver he'd promised to pay. He gave Hathach a copy of the written decree to show Esther. And then he sent a message that would change her life forever. "Go to the king, beg for mercy, plead for your people." Esther's response came back quickly, and it was honest. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death. The only exception is for the king to extend the gold scepter to them. Then their life is spared. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. She's not being cowardly. She's being factual. This is how Persian law worked. The inner court of the king was not accessible to anyone, not even the queen, without an invitation. Approaching uninvited meant death, immediate. No trial, no appeal. And the king hadn't called for her in 30 days. 30 days of silence from the most powerful man in the world. In palace politics, that kind of silence could mean anything. Favor had been known to shift overnight. Going to the king uninvited could mean her death. And dead queens save nobody. Mordecai's response came back, and it hits like a hammer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish." He's telling her, don't fool yourself. Your palace walls won't protect you when the decree is executed. Your secret identity won't hold forever. You are Jewish. You will die with your people if you do nothing. And then he says the words that have echoed through centuries. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, everything that happened to you wasn't random. Maybe losing your parents, maybe being taken into the palace, maybe being chosen as queen over hundreds of other women. Maybe none of that was coincidence. Maybe you were placed exactly here, at exactly this moment, for exactly this purpose. Esther sits with those words. We don't know how long, the text doesn't say, but something shifts in her. When her response comes back to Mordecai, she's a different person than the one who sent the last message. Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as well. She's preparing, spiritually, seriously. This isn't impulsive courage. It's deliberate, costly, eyes wide open bravery. And then the line that defines her entire story. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. Pause there. She knows it's against the law. She's not pretending otherwise. She's not hoping for a loophole. She's looking directly at the possibility of death and saying, I'm going anyway. And then the final 5 words. 5 words that belong in the Hall of Fame of human courage. And if I perish, I perish. If I die, I die. She's surrendered the outcome, released the need to control what happens next. She's made her decision and she's giving the results to God. 3 days pass, fasting, praying, waiting. On the 3rd day, Esther puts on her royal robes. She doesn't go in sackcloth and ashes. She goes in her full royal splendor. Head high, shoulders back, every inch a queen. She walks through the palace corridors, past the guards, past the officials, into the outer court. She can see the inner court from here. The king is sitting on his royal throne in his throne room, facing the entrance. He can see her too. This is the moment. She's visible now. He can see her standing there uninvited. Every person in that throne room knows the law. Every eye is on the king. Will he raise the scepter? Or will he call for her arrest? The silence stretches. Seconds that feel like years. And then, the king sees Esther standing in the court, and she wins his favor. He holds out the golden scepter. Esther walks forward and touches the tip of the scepter. Protocol observed, life spared. What is it, Queen Esther? The king asks. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given you. Esther takes a breath. She doesn't reveal the request yet. She's wise. She knows timing matters. She invites the king and Haman to a banquet she's prepared. They come. The king asks again at the banquet, what is your request? Still she waits. Come again tomorrow, she says, to another banquet. And then I will tell you. She's reading the moment, building anticipation, making sure the king is fully invested before she drops the truth. That night, Haman goes home. He's elated, invited to not 1 but 2 private banquets with the queen. His star has never been higher. He gathers his wife and friends and boasts about his wealth, his many sons, his promotions. But all this gives me no satisfaction, he says, as long as I see that Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate. His wife and friends have a suggestion. Have a gallows built, 75 feet high, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai hanged on it. Haman loves the idea. He has the gallows built that very night. But that very same night, the king can't sleep. The king is restless, tossing, turning, can't sleep. He orders his servants to bring the book of the Chronicles, the official record of his reign, and read it to him. Maybe it will bore him to sleep. But what they read is anything but boring. They read the account of a plot to assassinate the king. 2 of his officers had conspired to kill him, and a man named Mordecai had uncovered the plot and reported it, saving the king's life. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asks. Nothing has been done for him, the servants reply. Nothing. A man saved the king's life and was never rewarded. The king is troubled by this. And at that exact moment, as the sun is beginning to rise, Haman arrives at the palace, early, eager to ask the king about hanging Mordecai on his new gallows. Who is in the court? The king asks. Haman is standing in the court, his servants say. Bring him in. Haman enters. Before he can say a word, the king asks, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Haman thinks, who would the king want to honor more than me? He answers with elaborate detail. Royal robes, the king's own horse, a royal crest on its head, a noble to lead him through the city streets, proclaiming, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. The king nods. Go at once, get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended. Haman's blood runs cold. Mordecai, the man he came to hang, the man he built a 75-foot gallows for, he has to honor him publicly, through the city streets, proclaiming his greatness. He does it, every humiliating step of it. And then Mordecai returns to the gate, and Haman rushes home, head covered in grief, to tell his wife what happened. If Mordecai is of Jewish origin, his wife says quietly, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. They're still talking when the king's servants arrive to escort Haman to Esther's second banquet. The banquet is intimate. The king, the queen, Haman, wine poured, the atmosphere relaxed. The king turns to Esther again. Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. This is the moment. 3 days of fasting, years of preparation, a lifetime of being placed exactly here for exactly this. Esther sets down her cup. Her voice is steady. If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. The king's face changes. What are you talking about? Your life? Your people? For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. But we face death. Who is he? Where is he? The man who has dared to do such a thing. Esther doesn't hesitate. She points across the table. An adversary, an enemy, this vile Haman. The room goes completely still. Haman goes white. The king stands up in fury and storms out into the palace garden. Haman, realizing his life is over, throws himself onto the couch where Esther is reclining, begging for mercy. The king comes back inside and sees Haman on Esther's couch. Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house? The words barely leave his mouth before servants cover Haman's face, the Persian sign of a condemned man. One of the servants mentions, a gallows 75 feet high stands near Haman's house. He had it built for Mordecai. Hang him on it, the king says, and they did. Haman died on the very gallows he built for Mordecai. The king gave Haman's estate to Esther. He gave his signet ring, the one he'd given Haman, to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai over Haman's estate. But the decree still stood. Persian law couldn't simply be reversed. Once issued in the king's name, it was permanent. So the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to write a new decree. The Jewish people were permitted to defend themselves, to arm themselves, to fight back against anyone who attacked them, and fight back they did. On the very day that was supposed to be their destruction, they defended themselves successfully throughout every province. The day that was planned for their extermination became a day of celebration. They called it Purim, named after the Pur, the lot that Haman had cast to choose the date of destruction. Jewish people still celebrate Purim to this day, thousands of years later, feasting, celebrating, giving gifts to each other and to the poor, remembering the orphan girl who became queen, the cousin who stood when everyone else bowed, the sleepless night that changed everything. Here's what stays with me about Esther's story. God's name doesn't appear once in the entire book. Not once. No miracles are performed, no angels show up, no voice from heaven, no parting seas or fire from the sky. Just people making choices and circumstances that line up with suspicious precision. A king can't sleep on exactly the right night. The right records are read at exactly the right moment. Haman arrives at exactly the right time to be humiliated. The gallows he built becomes his own death sentence. Coincidence? Or the quiet, invisible hand of a God who works in the background when he doesn't work in the foreground? Esther's story suggests that God doesn't always show up dramatically. Sometimes he shows up in the timing of things, in the placement of people, in the way circumstances turn at exactly the right moment. But here's the uncomfortable truth this story forces on us. God's invisible hand still required Esther's visible courage. He could have placed her in the palace and she could have said nothing, kept her secret, preserved her comfort, let her people die while she ate royal food in royal rooms. The placement wasn't enough. She had to choose to act. Mordecai's question echoes across centuries and lands right at our feet. Who knows whether you have not come to your position for such a time as this? Your job, your neighborhood, your relationships, your particular set of gifts and access and influence. What if none of it is accidental? What if you are exactly where you are because someone or many people need you to be brave enough to act? Esther was just an orphan. She had no reason to matter, but she chose courage over comfort, and an entire nation lived because of it.